I'm still looking. Let's see. I believe it is 3.23 and 3.28. 2.23 and 2.28. That is where we are going to start today. 2.23 and 2.28. And we just might. Yes. Yep, I'm sorry. So it's 2.23 and 2.28 that we're going to do today. 2.23 and 2.28 we're going to do today. Cellular reproduction. All right, then we're going to move mitosis to Tuesday and meiosis to Wednesday. So that'll leave Thursday for you to review and the unit test due on Friday. All right, so everything is just going to move over a day. And I can refresh that in Canva so that reflects it. Or 3.2. Sorry, they're not twos, they're threes. 3.23, 3.28. Yep. There we go. So does that make sense now to everybody where we are and where we're going? 3.23, 3.28. Yes, okay. Get started today. How is everybody? Tell me about your weekends. How's your weekend? Good. Good. It was good. What was that one up there? You're sick. So are we skipping 319 through? So what 319 and 322 is it's about cell differentiation. It's not super complex. So I think if you read through 319 and 322, if you have any questions, bring them to me. I think we're going to want to cover this information more now. It's more difficult, is what I'm saying. So to get us back on schedule, we're going to leave that lesson for you guys to read over and study over and go through the others. Oh, Lexi! Oh, that is so sweet. 3.05 assignment of question required. Okay, let me look at what you're talking. 3.05. If it's the diffusion, what is it? Is it a lab? I'm going into the classroom here to see what you're looking at. The 3.05 cell assignment is, yes, it is a requirement. Yes, the cell project is a requirement. Yep, we won't have any more than one lab or one project per unit ever. So that one will be this unit. Yes, so it's not overdue because it is actually not due till this Friday. So it's like a unit 3 project. So once I opened it up, you have till this Friday, where the end of unit 3 until it's finished. So this Friday, you will have both your unit 3 tests, and we'll be done with unit 3. We will also have your cell projects due. So this Friday is a big date. We're kind of ending a lot of things this Friday. So hopefully that helps. So 3.23 today, mitosis tomorrow, meiosis Wednesday, Unit 3 quiz and cell project for those of you who haven't turned it in yet, due on Friday. Any other questions? How else was your weekend? Anybody else? Thursday or Friday? No, Thursday and Friday you just work on your own. Go ahead. .26 and 3.27. Let me peek at them for you. Yeah, we won't go. Yep, cell differentiation, cell specialization. 319 was chemical energy and life. That is just the same. The 319 and 320, those were all basically this talking about cellular respiration and photosynthesis and how they pair up and cycle with one another. So that you guys should be pretty good on photosynthesis and cellular respiration. All right. I love our Padlet, but we aren't going to do that right now because what we're going to do right now is class. So let's look at our goals for the day. Our goals for the day are these. And can I ask for a reader in our class?
If no one else wants to, I will go. I'm wondering if you can hear me. Oh, Ari's hand is up.
Yep. Okay, so why don't you read the first two and Aria read the last one since it's a
All
little
right. Okay, this is kind of a bit something because we're talking about something that is a bit on the nose, but it's worth it. Define asexual reproduction and define sexual reproduction. Thank you.
All right, and if Aria will read the last
Oh,
one.
Ari, you're muted, by the way.
Describe the difference between a haploid and a diploid cell.
Awesome. Thank you. Great job. Thank you so much, ladies. So these goals today are again back down here on the bottom of the triangle. We're going to start building up some base knowledge on this. So this is some new content today that we're going to look at. So when we started class, the very first couple of weeks, we looked at what makes something living, right? We talked about that they have to have like a way of inheriting things through DNA. They have to be able to metabolize or digest and use food for energy. They have to respond to their environment, grow and develop. We talked about this homeostasis, cellular organization, and the last we talked about right here is reproduction. So in order for something to be considered alive, it has to have this trait of being able to reproduce. All right, so let's make sure we're staying focused in chat. Reproduction is one of those, and it's a super important factor. So there are two ways that living things are able to reproduce. All right, there's the asexual way and the sexual way. Asexual, let's remember we do some dissecting of words. Anytime we have that A in the front of a word, what does that mean? Not. Good. Not. So not sexual reproduction and sexual reproduction. Right? Sexual reproduction is or asexual reproduction happens between, that is filled. Let's do this. Do not fill my thing. All right. Asexual reproduction is when one organism is able to reproduce on its own. One organism is to reproduce on its own. Now, I want you to look at this. It is able to do this, but when one organism reproduces single-handedly, there is a caveat. What do you notice down here in the blue? What do you notice down here? Yep, Pip's onto something. There you all are finding it. Offspring. What is an offspring? Let's just go through some of this vocabulary because it's coming at us. Offspring. What is an offspring? Good. Offspring are children to parents. So you are offspring of your parents. All right. So offspring are children. All right. So the children that is reproduced is genetically identical to the parent. Are you genetically identical to your parents? Are you genetically identical? Now, if you were genetically identical, you would be the same gender as your parent. You would look just like your parent. You would talk just like your parent. You would be 100% the same. All right, you may have some resemblances, but none of us are actually genetically to a T identical to our parents. All right, when you are, yes, Dustin, I was just going to use that word. So when you are a genetic copy of someone, it's called a clone. Okay? Clone. So your clones, like we remember we've done this a bazillion times where I go, everybody go like this. You've got thousands of cells coming off your arm. You're shedding skin cells. When your cell reproduces, your skin cells, they reproduce clones. If they did not reproduce clones, would your forearm look harmonious? Would it look the same? No. Your cells might have it might have a different job, it might have a different color, it might have a different form or growth pattern. No. Harmonious being like it looks all the same. It makes it look the same. All right. Like if my forearm just started growing like a nose, right? It didn't come back at those as the same skin color, the same job, the same all of that, then we would have a problem, right? Yeah, I could be looking very strange. So asexual reproduction is a form of reproduction, but it's a form of reproduction that is only used by usually very small organisms and very isolated organisms, okay? They are usually found like coral, okay? Like coral, things that are like can't get up and walk around, things that are what we call sessile. Sessile, that means they can't move. It's Sessile. I know, say it. We're going to learn all kinds of weird words this unit. Unit 3 and 4 are going to give us a whole new vocabulary. Sessile. All right, so then now let's flip gears and look over here at sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is different because it doesn't just we can't single-handedly reproduce, right? We are, as human beings, are sexually reproductive organisms, which means we can't have offspring single-handedly by ourselves. All right? There are two organisms that have to be participants. All right, we have the egg and the sperm in sexual reproduction. And because we have two organisms involved, we have genetic variety, right? You are genetically different than your parents. All right. This is some examples of asexual reproduction. All right. Some ways of doing this would be binary fission, which is this is like how our skin cells or bacteria, other single cellular organisms reproduce. All right, the DNA is there, the DNA is copied, the DNA migrates to both ends of the cells, and the cell splits into two. All right, this is binary fission. Another way of reproducing asexually is literally like if I were an asexual reproducer, if my arm was chopped off and was laying on the floor of my house, it would literally grow another Mrs. Rittenhouse. Okay, how crazy would that be? All right, so then there would not just be one of me in my house, there would be two of me because my arm, just like this edge of this hydra right here, all right, it buds, it splits off, and then this starts a whole new organism that is exactly the same. Okay. Can people do that? No, that would be crazy. But like starfish, they are regenerative, right? If they lose an arm, they can regenerate the arm and the arm can regenerate a whole new organism. Some plants are like that. If you cut off a piece of those plants, they'll reform and regrow. Now, the key to those are that they are what? If it reproduce asexually, what do we have to know about it? I want you to think about this. If you know something reproduces asexually, I want something to pop into your mind. Yes, they are identical. Yep. They are 100% the same. 100% the same. Which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of is. Because it doesn't make that population super strong when it comes to germs, viruses, all those kind of things. All right. So, sexual reproduction. I'm going to just say it. All right. This is not health class. We are not going into all the health of this. We are going into the science of sexual reproduction. So if you want that lesson, you're going to have to go. Yes, Justin, just like aloe. It reproduces. If you want a health class form of sexual reproduction, you are going to have to go to a different class. That is not today. All right. Today we are going to learn about the science behind how two cells from two of the same organism combine, all right, to make a new organism. So we see this information right here, and we're going to walk through it. So in sexual reproduction, it is when you have two sex cells, all right? And we are going to talk more specifically about this tomorrow and Wednesday, all right? Because there is a difference between the cells that are our reproduction cells and the cells that are on our forearm. There are some major differences, all right? The female form of our reproductive organism is the egg. All right, this is our egg cell. Everybody point. And the male version of our sex cells are the sperm cells. All right, they each have noted underneath here 23 chromosomes. That doesn't seem important now, but it's going to be very important tomorrow. All right. When you take your egg cell and your sperm cell and put them together, they make what we call a zygote. Everybody say zygote. I told you we were going to be learning some weird
Zygote.
words. Zygote. All right. A zygote is something you all started as. You all were a zygote. All right. Zygote. It is the baby of all babies. It was your very first day of life. All right. Was when two different pieces of DNA came together to form you, which happened upon the day of fertilization. All right. And this zygote grows and divides and becomes an embryo. These words I want you to look at tomorrow, okay? Haploid and diploid. Another funny word. All right. Haploid and diploid. I want you to look at those for tomorrow. Haploid cells are different from diploid cells in our body, and I want you to be able to tell me that tomorrow. Why? Okay? These are going to be more important because we need our haploid sperm and a haploid egg to make a diploid zygote. Some of our cells are haploid, some of our cells are diploids. Okay? And it makes a big difference on where those are at and what the job of those cells are. Haploid and diploid. Write them down because I want you to be able to tell me more about those tomorrow. Haploid and diploid. All right. This right here. All right. This is a zygote. Somebody tell me what you see in this. This is an actual microscope picture of a zygote. What do you see in this picture? From our cell anatomy class that we've had. Okay. I like this. Okay. So we're seeing some tiny eggs in the center. We're saying it appears to be diploid. Why do you say it appears to be diploid? Tell me what you think. These aren't eggs, but I'm glad that you're seeing these. These are important. Two of something. Two of something. I like it. Two sets of chromosomes. Yes. Okay. So this is when you have a nucleus from an egg cell and a nucleus from a sperm cell. When they come to be a zygote, they have to go through a process of combining their DNA. Does that make sense? Now, this DNA is not combined yet. All right, you're seeing pieces of DNA organized in the middle of this cell right here. All right? Because this cell is actually two cells fused into one. All right? This is a day one cell. Day one of life, you all looked similar to this. That one cell, all right, this is one cell. It divides. It divides. On day two, it looks like this. See how many little bubbles we have here? Day 3. Your bubbles look like this. What's the difference between day 2 and day 3? What do you notice? It's not two organisms. It's the same organism. There's just more cells. Does that make sense? Each one of those are cells. Good. It divided exponentially, is what Pip basically said. She said it went from 4 to 8. Each one of those cells divided. And it looks like it, when cells divide upon each other, that's called exponential growth. All right. So from day 2, you grow into a bigger ball of cells, day 3. And this picture right here is a picture of a day 3 to 5 embryo. I'm going to give you a pretty big secret about these embryos right here. Are you ready for it? You all looked similar to this on day 3 to 5. I know specifically that this is a 5-day embryo. There's actually 2 of them. All right, this is one embryo. And this is a second embryo. You want to know how I know this is a 5-day embryo? Ooh, I like your thinking, Dustin. It is not twins. But it could be. It could have been. I know these were 5-day embryos because guess what? These are my embryos. Yep. These are my embryos. Yes. So one is not Mila. We actually had a typical situation with, but when we went to family plan baby number 2, the doctors told us we had almost a 0% chance of having another baby. So we went through a process called in vitro fertilization. In vitro fertilization. It's called IVF. Has anyone heard of IVF? In vitro fertilization. IVF. All right. Oh. So we went through a process where I went to the doctor and they had to surgically remove my egg cells, and that my husband had to have his cells surgically removed as well. All right. And so Ren was actually born in a lab. In a lab. Our geneticist took our 2 cells and put them together in a petri dish. And she grew. She grew for 5 days in the lab. And then on day 5, I'm believing that this embryo right here is Ren. Okay, this is the healthier embryo of the 2. The embryos actually hatch. All right, see this little bubble right here? They hatch out of their initial kind of one cell. And so this is the day that we transferred Ren, then was surgically removed from the petri dish and put in my belly. All right. And then she grew. So let me look up here because I'm getting lots of things in chat. Thank you for saying my embryos are cute. So yes. So Ren is one of these 2 embryos. The second embryo we transferred about 2 years after Ren was born. and that embryo did not survive. All right. So that embryo, we never got to meet this baby. This
If
is
the
our
one that
ring.
you're pointing at, if the one you
Mhm.
were pointing at was Ren, it would have been a whole different story. Thankfully, Ren was the one who survived.
I
If it
know.
weren't for Ren, we would miss her beautiful smile.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, our embryos were not super healthy. If you look back at these pictures before, these were healthy embryos where you can see all the bubbles, to be exact. Our embryos, Ren and our baby that maybe we'll get to meet some other day, is not healthy. They're what they called fragmented embryos. All right, their organization is not as beautiful and clean and crisp as you can see these examples in day and 2 and 3 are. They do grow a lot more between day 3 and this. So they would look similar in size, but they would have a lot more of a round shape to them. All right. Yeah, most of you don't have pictures of yourself quite this little, do you? You don't have embryo pictures like this. Yeah, yeah. So we are super grateful. We are super grateful for science, and we are super grateful for miracles because we believe that both of those situations happen for us because without being able to do IVF, we wouldn't have Rennie today. But like I said, this is not a healthy embryo, and the chances of her to survive a transfer being that weak of an embryo was not good. So I also do believe in miracles, and that's why I believe that Ren is here today. Um, yes, 100%. Yep, absolutely. So I always like to share that with everybody because it is a super personal story. She is my miracle baby. She is my miracle baby. I say Ren is miracle baby, or Mila is miracle baby number 1 because we didn't even know um, our struggle was going to be that big. We didn't realize that our odds were, it was not even a 1% chance. It was like 0.1% that we were going to be able to conceive a baby. So Mila happened and we don't know how. So Mila is miracle number 1, and miracle number 1 was always asking for a sister or a brother. So we're super thankful for miracle number 2. But yes, so I like to share that personal story because it is neat. It is neat that we have bodies that can sexually reproduce for some people so easily, right? That we are able to reproduce and grow. But it is also super neat that for situations such as mine, right? When you have obstacles like that behind you. Absolutely, Pip. Oh, absolutely. So I am super grateful that we have other ways that through science that we can also um, but we can also utilize those things of sexual reproduction to grow. And I also like to say this. What is different between this embryo and this embryo? What's different between my embryos and between Mila and Ren? What's different? What do you think? Different chromosomes? Yes. Different genetic arrangements. And this is what I love so much about sexual reproduction. Did you know that there is not another genetic combination like yours in the entire world? Did you know that? There is not a genetic combination like yours in the entire world. There is not, I'm not just saying this to give you a pep talk or a like a morale booster, but you are the only one of you that will ever exist in this world. There will never be another Adam, another Ethan, another Justin, another Pip, another Ireland or Dustin, another Faith. There is never, ever been someone just like you. And there will never, ever be another person just like you. There are identical twins, but there are things with identical twins that because of environmental factors that make them unique. Right? And when identical twins reproduce, do they reproduce the same offspring? No. Right? They have differentiation there as well. And so I want to challenge you that some days we have days when we doubt that we matter, we doubt our value, we doubt our importance, we wonder why life is so hard or why you have the people around you that are around you. And I want to remind you of this. Those people that are surrounding you are around you for a reason. Because there is only one of you in this world that will ever be, and the people around you need you for who you are. I'm going to say that again. The people who are around you in your life are around you because they need you for who you are. And you matter because you are the only one like you in this world that will ever exist. And so you might say, well, I only have this person or that. Like, I have such a small circle. I don't really know that. But the people that you do know, the people that are around you, they need you for who you are. Okay? Do I have every biology student at OHVA in my class? Can I make a difference to every student in OHVA? I don't. No, I have a select few of you. All right, I specifically have 64 of you in class today. And whereas I can't change the whole world, I know that I have 64 of you in my class right now that are specifically in my class, right? And you guys, and we are in each other's spheres of influence for a reason. Because we need each other and we need each other for who each of us are. So please don't forget that. All right. You were an embryo just like this, and we can unwrap each one of your DNAs. And I wish we could. I wish we had the technology that it wasn't so expensive so that we could do that, because I would love for you to each see how uniquely made you are. It would be so cool. It would be so cool to take that ribbon of DNA and just unwind them and see all the colors. I wish a color could just represent something different that is in each of you. But you each have something different, a different combination, a different pattern in your DNA that makes you have something special that someone never else will have and no one else will ever be. All right? That's not for everybody, because it's for right now and for the people that are around us. Yes, if you took your DNA out of your cell and you unwound it, it would be really, really, really long. That's why our DNA spins and rolls up, because it makes it fit in our cells. All right. All right, once our cells are in that ball, all right, once we come from this ball of cells, eventually we start getting big enough that we start getting jobs. And I like to think about this as like when you're born, your cells are like in kindergarten, and then we grow and we go to elementary school, and we all need the same things in elementary school, right? We all need to learn how to read, and we all need to know how to do math. And it kind of is through high school, even like that, right? Where we all need to know some basic things. But then as we start getting into what, maybe juniors and seniors and beyond, we start thinking about what we're going to do for like our living and our life job and our trade and our professions. And as we start looking at what we're going to do for our jobs and our professions, we start thinking, I think reading's hard too, Ethan. We start thinking about what we need to do to get us ready for that, right? If I want to go into cosmetology, I need to start learning stuff about hair science. If I want to go into welding, I need to start learning about things about welding. If I want to go be a doctor, I need to start working on. So when you start getting old enough, right, we need to start training more specifically. And so as you get older, it's just like this in cells. As our cells and our bodies grow, as that ball of cells get bigger, our embryo gets bigger, our cells start getting jobs. And our cells start saying, well, you go be a brain cell and you go be a lung cell. Oh, I need some of you to go be tongue cells, right? Our cells start getting jobs. And that is what we call self-differentiation. Okay. Our cells that don't have jobs are called stem cells. All right. When you are born, there's only one place you still have stem cells. Does anyone know where that might be? Where might you still have stem cells when you're born? It's a kind of tricky one. All right. It is not specifically on your little baby bodies. But that's a good guess, Dustin. It's not the intestine though, because they're digestive cells. Your zygote's gone now because your zygote grew into all these differentiated cells. Think of a temporary home. Think about how a baby gets their nutrition. Does a baby get their nutrition inside the womb? Yes, the umbilical cord. The umbilical cord at birth is the only place that you still can get stem cells, which are cells that haven't been given a job. Because, see, once they start doing a job, that's all they can do. Does that make sense? Like if I took some of my skin cells and we're like, oh man, I'm running on a shortage of liver cells. Can I take some of these skin cells and just remove them and have the doctor give me some more liver cells? It doesn't work like that. Like, just like when you get in a pattern of doing a job or doing something and you kind of forget how to do an old way, that is the same thing that happens with our cells. Like once they get a job, that's what their identity is. That's what all they know how to do. So they're actually doing something now when babies are born, and you can actually pay, that's a good amount of money, to save some of the stem cells from the umbilical cord for like future life situations. So that if you would need cells for transplants or blood cells or whatever else, you could have those. They actually freeze them and store them for a time that you might need them. Anyway, that was just a fun tidbit of information. But that is it for today. Thank you for how does the stem cell get its job? So the stem cell gets its job. I want you to think about, like, look at a wall in your house right now. Look and imagine it's just full of light switches. Okay? Like a wall full of light switches. Every cell kind of has a wall full of light switches. And when your cell gets a job, your DNA, basically your nucleus and DNA go in there and it turns off the light switches for, like, if it's going to be a lung cell, it goes off and turns off the brain, the intestine, the kidney, the spleen. It turns off all the lights, right? And flips on the one that it needs. I know, that does seem like a nightmare, doesn't it? But that's the best visual that I can give you, is that it turns off all the information and kind of like stores it in hiding, and then it keeps that information that it needs out. Kind of like a filing cabinet of light switches that would be like, and then it turns off what it needs, stores it, and keeps that information up. Yeah, it's a really fascinating process. And if this stuff really intrigues you, I would say that that might be something that tells you that maybe you have a science mind, and maybe that you need, like, maybe you should pursue something in science. Because that's what my thing was. I found science so fascinating and so interesting. Like, I wanted to know more and I wanted to understand about all of that. I know scientists that spend lots of time in the lab watching cells and under microscopes that cost thousands of dollars of technology, lots of time and study. But it's super duper cool. Well, thank you all for letting me share today personally about reproduction and cellular growth. We're going to take a little bit of what we learned today and apply it and look at how do we get these sex cells? How do we get these skin cells? How do they divide? How did that information get there? How did the information of the job get there? It's from your DNA. All of that's in your DNA inside of every single one of our cells. And a cell couldn't survive without DNA. And all cells come from what? What's our cell theory? All cells come from other cells, from pre-existing cells. Pretty cool. So that it's the DNA that has transferred and transformed over time. I know we're going long today. You're welcome to leave today. No quiz. We don't have a quiz till later in the week. Make sure you spend time. This is a good flashcard lesson with all these weird words. All right. Make sure you look into mitosis and meiosis for tomorrow. And you're so welcome. Thank you for letting me share a little bit about my story. Oh, I'm so glad you loved it. I love it too. It gave us our greatest blessings. Just like